from Little Rock School District who will be presenting. We have Jason Seelig from Lake Hamilton School District and Dan Brashears from Centerpoint. And then we also have the infamous Evan Patrick, who is manning our webinar and sticks with us on all of our webinars. So thank y'all. And if you'll go ahead and turn it over to the PowerPoint, we'll get started. Oh, and I'm Missy Wally with Division of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and the Department Director of Special Projects. So we're going to start with Let's Chalk, Confronting the Brutal Facts. This is actually the fourth of our webinar series for the PLC. So we started with why of a professional learning community. And then we took a little break and did a couple of COVID topics about wondering about back to school and some social emotional learning. And then we went back to another topic on the mission and vision, on determining that mission vision. And this one is confronting the brutal facts and the needs assessment. So who you have on here presenting is you have 3 administrators from cohort 4. And I think it's really important that we have cohort 4 because they just started this process with the PLC project, which means they are just now going through the needs assessment, and they've just received their results of their needs assessment, and they're having to confront the brutal facts. And in order to change, you have to confront the brutal facts, your current reality. Where are you now, and what is it going to take in order to drive that change? All right, if you'll go to the next one. This is on our agenda for today. We're going to have Ms. Walker, who will be doing the school needs assessment, and this is based on her school. And then we'll have Dan Brashears, he's the superintendent from Centerpoint, and he will do the district needs assessment and how it looks different at a district. And then we've got Jason Seelig, who's also with the cohort 4, and he's the principal at Lake Hamilton, and he's doing the needs assessment. But he did it on 2 different ways. He's done it with the HRS and PLC. So he's going to be bringing those 2 together. And then I'll talk to you a little bit. I'll close up a little bit with about the high reliability survey offerings. On the bottom, you'll see the Q&A. The Q&A is where you can ask questions, and we'll try to answer those questions throughout the webinar. And I'll be manning the Q&A as they present. Also, the recording of this webinar will be located on the Professional Learning Communities page on the ADE website, if you need to find that, or go back and look at the other webinars. Those are on there as well, those recordings. Like I said, this topic, confronting the brutal facts, just this morning I had a conversation, or somebody was talking and didn't want their name identified on a survey, and I get it, especially with the days of social media and the blasting that something happens out on social media. It's hard. It is hard to get that needs assessment. And I remember when we first gave our needs assessment, when I was with the cohort 1, and I had a teacher who walked by and they said, "Miss Wally, I think I made us look good. I think I made us look good." And I'm like, wait, don't make us look good. I really need you to be truthful. I need you to, because we're not going to grow unless you're truthful. So, but it's also hard to hear. So I really appreciate these 3 administrators sharing their story with us. And you can go on to the next slide. Again, we have Stephanie Walker, who's the principal at Watson Elementary in Little Rock School District, Dan Brashears, the superintendent at Centerpoint School District, and Jason Seelig, who's the principal at Lake Hamilton Junior High School in Hot Springs. So I'm going to turn it over. Oh, hold on just a second. From good to great, confront the brutal facts. So the title of our whole presentation came from this quote right here that Jim Collins puts in his book, Good to Great. It's retain faith that you will prevail in the end, regardless of the difficulties. And it is hard work, regardless of the difficulties. And at the same time, confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be. So I'm turning it over to Ms. Walker and let her tell you about their journey with the needs assessment.
Good afternoon, everybody. The needs assessment. This was a wonderful journey. A little nervous about it because even in a school setting, you have the different components of the PLC. So we were a team that we love to meet, love to collaborate. We love to We had time in the day to be able to meet. We had all of the different components. However, there were still some parts missing. And so in order to move forward with the PLC, the professional learning community process, we have to make a diligent effort to determine the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, but it helps as well. So we have to get over self. We have to get over all of the different other factors that play into our pride. We have to humble ourselves, and we have to just really want to get a current reality in moving forward with the professional learning community process. Our team wanted to make sure we are doing the right work. So the first step was that we went through the journey of the needs assessment. And so I named it the what, because it is the what, and we'll see shortly what I mean by the what. But what is a needs assessment? So I'm ready for the next slide. And just reviewing back, if you think of, while he's going to the next slide, if you think of a needs assessment, was just communicating with some colleagues about having a health assessment. You think about the fact that when you, every year we go to that dreaded health assessment, health to the doctor, where we want to see if we have made improvements for the current year or what have you. So, and going to the doctor, a doctor is just not, you walk in his office, he's just not going to give you a remedy. He's just not going to just begin to prescribe medicine. He is going to have to take an assessment of the current condition. And so we have to look at a needs assessment in the same manner. So the process of identifying a need, identifying needs to move toward the workable solution that causes improvement. So that a needs assessment is that process. Okay, I'm ready for the next slide. So going back to my comparison, going to a doctor, there are some gaps because last year I may have been doing wonderful. This year it may be something different. So what this needs assessment is going to help us with that process of improving ourselves. So the purpose is to identify gaps between the current status of your school and your vision of where you want to be. We know where we want to be, and we know that it's going to take work and a journey to get there. But the needs assessment is that important tool that's going to identify these gaps. So a needs assessment is the what the school needs. Ready? So a good needs assessment, it's going to take time. You know, we're used to previous needs assessments where we have a checklist and we check off yes or no, we do this individually, then we get together. A good needs assessment is going to take a little time and a little thought, and it's going to take a little reflection. So our needs assessment on day one, we had 2 days of this process, and it was a very, very, very good process. So day one, well, before even day one, we have to really organize how you got to decide how you want to plan out the needs assessment days 1 and 2. And so we were able to plan out our day. We decided on the groups who were going to be, stakeholders who were going to be questioned and reflect on current practices. We started out with the administration. So the administration consisted, of course, me, assistant principal. Those were administration, and the questions that were asked came and were aligned directly with our professional learning communities at work continuum. So it's all aligned with that continuum, that is a solid foundation even during the process, that continuum. So questions were asked, and the current reality was the very first question. And so I gave that current reality, and we were able to discuss that. My assistant principal gave her input as well. We discussed the current reality and where we would like to go. And then he met with another group, our leaders, our guiding coalition, which is our leadership team combined, our guiding coalition. So I wasn't present. So normally, you know, I'm in another room wondering, okay, now I know, you know, like that person said, I'm gonna make you look good. Just tell the truth, which nothing really to hide, but you still kind of have that anxiousness, like, what are they really saying? Are they really understanding the reasoning, the why behind this? So, and then he met with instructional teams. He met with instructional teams later that day. and consisted of teachers and grade level chairs and their colleagues and specialists. And then he met with parents and students later that day. So we were very fortunate to get everyone in on the same day, but in different sessions. So everyone wasn't together. They didn't feel as if they were being watched or, by me being in there. So I went on about my day. So that was completed successfully. And so then on day 2, administrators, we wrapped up everything with any other questions. We went even deeper in some of the conversations from the day before. And so we had a question and answer. And so all questions were asked, answers. Then the administrator, me, AP, and the Guiding Coalition, we met again. Again, just a thorough wrap up of the day before, the direction we're going, and we wrapped everything up, and we had a question and answer even after that. So one thing about it, be prepared to really go deeper in your thought processes and to be able just to communicate, because there again, no wrong or right answers. They're just here to assess our needs so that we can get to the end goal, the big picture. And so the first step was our needs assessment. So our associate lead and others analyzed data results, and they are reviewed and they're analyzed. So just like in a doctor's office, after we tell him everything, the truth, what's going on, he has to analyze. So we're sitting here like, okay, when the next day or 2, what are those results? So in step 3, that was later in September. So we started in August with our needs assessment, and in September, our planning and creating goals days. So we met again. And so our needs assessments and results were shared. So just like the truth is, here comes the big answer. So I was really, I was shocked in a way because of the communication piece. And that is really important to make sure that even though you are communicating a new initiative, a new process, something that that you are wanting to help to improve your school, make sure just focus on a communication piece, because individuals' perceptions may be a little bit different. So that piece is important to stay on and to ensure everyone is understanding. However, I was really happy to hear that a lot is in place. It's just that we needed to ensure that the right work was going on during the collaborative meetings and using the common language. That's important as well. So we viewed our needs assessment results, we viewed data, and we created those SMART goals. Now, all goals must be and should be, I wouldn't say must, but they should be in SMART goal format. So we were able to create some quantitative goals, some qualitative goals. We produced those. We were able to even develop a stretch goal with that needs assessment. Based on the results, we knew the direction we needed to go. So we had literacy, we used mathematics, science is optional, and then our qualitative goal, which is the growth area, was developed. And then our stretch goal, that's that goal that you won't just meet. And we already know we will not reach that goal in just 1 year. It may take multiple years to do that, but that is that stretch goal. We keep our eye on that mark. So in all, I had a wonderful experience, even though some of the results was a little shocking, because you think, we understand it, we have it, but when you hear other individuals' perceptions of the why, then it helps me as a leader to go back now and to know and how to communicate and readjust or revise or provide any professional development in the areas where there were some misconceptions. But in all, we are well on our way at Watson Elementary. We have the components, we have the desire, we got our results, and we got the diagnosis. And now we got the prescriptions, we got the medicine, in other words, like a doctor gives us medicine to begin to bring everything together. So the needs assessment is a need. It is that foundation, and to launch us on into the next level. So on the next slide, once we created the goals and we shared our goals, of course, with our guiding coalition, We aligned our goals with our school improvement plan. And wonderfully, it's already aligned. We've made some adjustments. That's one of our focus areas now in our school improvement plan. And so now that the needs have been identified and the goals and targets are set, it is time for that takeoff.
All right, so I guess I'll jump in here now, and I'm going to start by, I stole one of Stephanie's slides and put it back on here, and just kind of talk about the fact that when we're talking about a needs assessment, you know, you started out with the process, which she did a fantastic job of describing. I won't rehash that. And then step 3 there is where do you go from here? I'm going to look through the lens of the middle step there, item 2, and that is the analysis of the results of the assessment. And I want to start out by talking about context. Context matters. I think that Missy said there's like 100 or so folks watching this. Well, that means probably there are nearly 100 districts represented, and every single one of you are different. And the 3 of us are very different, Little Rock, Lake Hamilton, and Centerpoint. So context is very important. So I'm going to just briefly, to emphasize that point, share the context of the Centerpoint School District. We are a 3A school. We have about 1,000 students, K through 12. Campuses are all on one geographical footprint, and we have several shared staff members, K-12. The K-5 campus is a standalone building, and then the 6-8 is a middle school, and the 9-12 all within one structure, but with their own LEA numbers, their own administration, and more or less their own staff. Again, lots of shared staff. And we just added down at our Agri facility on the high school campus, our new conversion charter school this year, the Cast High School. So that's part of our context. Also looking at our student population, we're 71% free and reduced lunch, 19% Hispanic, less than 1% African-American, and the rest are pretty much Caucasian. And we are very, very rural. We're in North Pike County, and we're out in the country. And a lot of folks, there are some jobs in the logging industry and whatnot in our area, but a lot of commuting as well. And so let's talk about our teachers and administration and that demographic. Our teachers, we kind of have an hourglass shape. If you think about the experience level, they've either been there for 15 years or more, or they've been there for 5 years or less. There's not a whole lot in the middle. And most of those teachers who've been there for a long time are local folks. They're from around here, or around Centerpoint. Elementary principal has been in-house for over 30 years. She was an in-district hire. The middle school principal came to us 3 years ago from another district. He's in his 3rd year as a principal. And the high school principal was an in-house hire. Has been in the district for 15 or more years. And then I have been in the district about 7 years, and I was an out-house hire. So talking about context, you know, COVID, right? It's part of the context of everything. So just to share real quickly, as we're looking and assessing the data that came in from this analysis, you got to look at the continuums. And the continuums come from the book Learning by Doing, page 6. And let me just point out a little bit on there. It's talking about the continuums based on a premise that it gets easier to get from point A to B if you know where point B is. And so the purpose of these different continuums is really to help you face the right direction before you start the journey, because it doesn't matter how many steps you take if you were faced the wrong direction when you started, and the continuums are kind of there to help get us pointed in the right direction. So let's talk about breaking down the continuums. When you look at the data, you kind of fall within one of these areas in each continuum. You're either a pre-initiating stage where you've not begun to address those principles or practices at all. You're in the initiating stage where you've made some efforts or somebody's made some efforts in the school or district, but it hasn't had critical mass yet of the entire staff. Implementing stage is kind of middle of the line. We're doing the work. There's still some uncertainty, and we definitely have a lot of room to grow. Developing is a good place to be. And you start seeing the change in mass by everybody being on the same page, everybody focusing, as it says there, not why are we doing this, but how can we do more? And then finally, the goal we're all headed toward is that sustaining stage where you never arrive, but you're always going. And so when you're in that sustaining model, it's just how do we keep going? And we know every year different groups of kids come in. You guys that have been teachers and administrators know from year to year, some classes are just special. And sometimes you really mean that. And sometimes special has quotation marks around it. So as we were looking at the information, the brutal facts of our data, I had my thoughts just like the rest of you will. When you start doing this work, you're going to go, well, here's what I think the different subgroups are going to say, and here's how I think we fall out. But then you got to look at the survey. And the survey says, I'm going to start with just the first continuum. The first continuum that is on the list was communicating effectively. And so just to identify real quick, for those of you who may have your eyes closed relaxing, I'll just read that paragraph. The school has established a clear purpose and priorities that have been effectively communicated. Systems are in place to ensure action steps are aligned with the purpose and priorities that are implemented and monitored. Now, underneath this, and I didn't include this, there are lots of subcategories with little boxes and ways, really kind of a rubric where you can break down where you fall. And so the different folks, just as Stephanie mentioned, you had your teachers and you had your guiding coalition and you had your administrative team and you had parents and you had students, you had all these different groups answer the same, slightly different worded questions, but in the same realm. And then I thought the outcomes would be that we were in the initiating or implementing stages. And sure enough, the survey said we were initiating. So the next question, still under the communicating effectively component, is the school has established a clear purpose and priorities that have been effectively communicated. Systems are in place to ensure action steps align with the purpose and priorities that are implemented and monitored. Well, the evidence of that is right here in this statement that our coach provided. And he said, while the team is enthusiastic about the foundations that were built, there's still some work needed for clarity and capacity throughout the organization. Now to the next step. I got one slide ahead of myself. Okay. There was another component or another piece to that component about the leaders communicating the purpose and priorities, allocating resources, and talking about what we celebrate and what we confront. Again, I thought we were maybe in the implementing or even the developing stage. The survey results came back. Our coach who analyzed that data determined we're in the implementing stage. What was the evidence? Next slide. The evidence was that even though we share emphasis on essential standards in some of our campuses, embedding that, and we embedded the time, we've begun the work, but we still were more about products for compliance among some of our teams. I'm going to pause for a moment and talk about the differences, at least from my perspective, being new to this, being into this 3 months now. If you're in a smaller school, a district that's about our size, and you're considering the district model, one of the things you'll want to consider is where each building is, or where each of your groups are among your teams. I was telling Missy and I were talking about this, and she said that she felt like the district model is really a great thing, and she'd really emphasize that people would consider that when they apply for the grants or start the process. I said, being the guy that's in month 3 of this, of a 3-year process, I'm not sure I could make that same recommendation right now. But admittedly, a year from now, my opinions will be different because I'll have a lot more ground covered. But right now, our challenge is organizing, because our secondary folks are very focused, as you guys all know, on content and getting things done and crossing off lists and making check marks. Our elementary people are more about of how they engage the students and the processes, more so than maybe products. And so they're in real different places, and try to marry all that as a district cohort has been a challenge. We're still going to continue to do that, and we're going to get better and better. But anyway, that was just the first continuum, is communicating effectively. Next slide. I'm not going to go through all the continuums. I'll just share that the process is the same for each of them. You went through each of those, and then the next slide shows what those others are. It's the laying the foundations work, the goals that drive our teams, clarifying what students must learn, turning the data into information, monitoring students' learning, and then providing systemic RTI and extensions. Those are the additional continuums. Same process. We got the same information. but I'm not going to necessarily air all our dirty laundry or take the time that it would take to go through all that. Suffice to say, when you look at all that data, you got to be ready to see what some of those hard truths are and be sure that you're ready to handle them. Always keeping in mind with your staff that nobody's judging, and the process is not to be critical of anyone or anything the district's doing. The focus is getting better. The focus is revealing areas where we need to do better to serve our kids, and to just go to the next step. Okay, but I do want to go back to that Stephanie slide where she talked about the different groups. And if you take a look at those groups, administration, you could probably guess about where you are looking at the data they provide, the feedback, your leadership guiding coalition, your teacher teams. What really struck me when I looked at this was the feedback from the parents. Even the students didn't surprise me a lot. The students answered about how I thought they would, but the parents, I'll just share that there was a great emphasis on how much time and effort we put on our athletic programs. And Centerpoint is not, they've done well. We've done well in athletics the last few years, but we're not necessarily known. We don't like win state championships every year or ever since I've been there, but we do well. We're known for agri programs, but it was funny to me that all of the answers from the parents focused on either how great our athletic program is or how we need more of it. So that right there told me we've got some work to do to share, to get those parents and the community involved in different components of what we're about. The athletics is great, but we all know that's not what we're about. So I just thought I'd share that was an interesting finding. When you go through this, be sure you look at the Q&A at the end from your focus groups, because that's really telling. Okay, next slide. Just kind of a thought as I'm about to wrap up mine. Evan, you can go to the next slide. There's been a lot going on, right? 2020. Okay, back up one. 2020 has been challenging, but no matter how full our plate gets or how busy we seem like we are, we got to remember, next slide, that the plate is the work we're trying to do. That is the plate. So when you start analyzing this data, when you start looking at what you're doing for kids, don't, and I keep reminding my staff, don't think of this as one more thing on top of COVID and on top of maybe some unrest in the community. It's not one more thing. This is the work. So we've got to take the time. The work is too important for us to not take the time to take a deep look and a critical evaluation at what we're providing for our kids. So I appreciate your time today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Mr. Seelig over at Lake Hamilton Junior High.
Well, that's a great segue into the topics that I'm going to discuss today too with you, because it does seem like it can be overwhelming, because it may seem like you're adding something to the plate of your staff or to the plates of your teachers, but it is the right work. And I think changing the mindset of getting them to commit to that right work, that it is what's best for kids, that we must look at ourselves in the mirror each day when we enter the building. And leave our baggage at the door when we enter, and know that we're going to give our best effort for our kids that day. I think that's the message that we have to send every day to our kids and our staff. It's our careers. It's what we all got degrees to do. And so it's our job to come to work every day with a positive attitude and give it our best shot. And so y'all are going to really think that I'm probably crazy, but we here at Lake Hamilton Junior High have decided to take on the PLC grant, along with diving into HRS Level 1 certification this year. But our premise behind that was the simple fact that it is synonymous. It is the same work. There's a lot of similarities. And as this slide states, professional learning communities serve as the cornerstone of high reliability schools. As you'll see later, it's indicator 1.4. And as it states in the HRS book, that, this does serve as a cornerstone for that process to kind of take flight. And so, down in the bottom right-hand corner, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read this book. It's a phenomenal book, and it kind of blends the two together perfectly. And there's a lot of scenarios in there that can help you lead this process. So leaders create sustainable improvement, school improvement by building educators' capacity to function, as a PLC. So, in a higher level organization. Evan, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay. So how we kind of went through the process is we administered level 1 and level 2 surveys, both last year. And we found out some very interesting facts about our school, current realities, if you will. And some of the things that, you really pride yourself on to get this up and going is a safe and supportive and collaborative culture. We wanted to make sure that we surveyed just the students and the staff, or student, staff, and parents on this survey, because we felt like that our parents could really talk about and discuss all those characteristics that go along with that. We wanted 80% of our staff and our students to participate in this survey to get a good data pool. We also did effective teaching in every classroom. Surveyed students and staff only on this one, just because we felt like the language that was used may not be understandable all the way by our parent group. And so we wanted to make sure that we started with that first. We thought that if we could not face the current reality within our own walls and attack that first, how can we help parents understand what it is that we're trying to achieve in our building? So we wanted to make sure that we cured those things going on in our building first before we reached out to our parents as far as instruction goes in the classroom, so that we can create that guaranteed and viable curriculum in each classroom. The survey results, remember, they're all based on perceptions. So it's perceptual data. We use the mean average of 3.5 or higher as our strengths. Anything lower than that, we started diving into our growth areas. We also wanted to look at our mode, because kind of the hard part about looking at your HRS data is just understanding how to look at the data and analyze it. I think that's a difficult part. And so we wanted to look at our mode, the most common responses in the 1 to 5 scale. And then of course, our standard deviation. We did not want it to go over 1.0. We felt like that would be a wide variance in between our staff, but would also make us ask some questions about why is our staff not able to really come together on that question. And so that would be something that we would attack through those results as well. Okay. All right. So some of the things that we determined out of our survey, especially out of level 1, and remember, that's the certification process that we're going through this year. So I'm just going to list a couple of them here today. 1.3, teacher have formal roles in the decision-making process regardless of school initiatives or regarding school initiatives. And so we really wanted to hone in on that one because teachers need a voice, our staff need a voice. And we want to make sure that we are hearing them. It doesn't mean that, you're not going to make everybody happy through this process, but you do want consensus to rule. And you want to make sure that you at least hear those voices through this process. So in this process, when we started diving into the leading indicators, we said, well, why don't we start to look at our lagging indicators and just things that we're doing already, which most of you probably have numerous things that you're doing in your buildings right now that would go along with especially level 1 of the HRS. But we decided to design a decision-making matrix from least input to most input. And so that means that what teachers would have the most input on from the principal's point of view, what I can control, what the administration can control, and what teachers can actually have input on in controlling that. Our guiding coalition represents all department areas. Even since last year, we added members onto our guiding coalition just this year to make sure and represent. That's one thing that came out of our needs assessment from our PLC process, was to add everybody on there. I originally thought that there shouldn't be more than 12 on a guiding coalition, but if everybody's not represented, how are you going to get that information out? And one thing I'll touch on real quick about the guiding coalition is you're always seen as the inner circle. And so you have to really do a great job, and like Dan said, of communicating effectively. So that continuum is huge in how you're going to create a feedback loop to get that information out to your staff. Because too often you leave with so much great information that and your head is full by the end of that day, that you walk out of that room and it's, what do we share? How do we share it? And when do we share it? You know, so that you don't overwhelm the staff. And so that's very important when thinking about this, is to make sure that your guiding coalition that you form is going to represent the staff as well. And then of course we rotate teacher team roles within our team meetings so that they all have or play a part in this to distribute that leadership. Okay. Another leading indicator that we came across, which again I alluded to earlier, was that the 1.4 was collaborative teams regularly interact to address common issues regarding curriculum assessment and instruction and the achievement of all students. That is a mouthful. That is a lot happening behind the scenes, as you all know. And so we created some lagging indicators, some things that we were already doing, some things we are thinking about doing, some things that we want to put in place. And so tracking the work of team spreadsheet all in one place. This spreadsheet, you know, you can track all teams and what's going on in the building. Math department can see what the literacy department's doing, what their essential standards are, and vice versa. So all departments can see that taking place within the building. And they also see that all key members of the staff are taking part in this. School-wide schedule of team collaborative days and times, those meetings that are taking place. We also posted, you know, created norms, protocols, agendas for each meeting. We created essential standards units, plans for the learning assessment cycles within each team, SMART goals that I know that we've talked about today, and then also assessment data. And we also created a data wall. So there are things, and I hear of people doing this all over the state. So there are things that you're already doing. I promise you, if you just sat down and took a look at it, that you could really apply, especially to level 1 moving forward. All right. All right. So one thing we had to do when we began was, in our drives, as I'm sure most of your drives are, there's stuff all over the place in your Google Drives. And so we had to get very organized. And so under level 1, you know, that we're working in this year, we had to start creating folders for those 3 levels. And I put those 3 levels there because you're working on all 3 at the same time, whether you know it or not. You truly are. And especially if you're participating in the PLC process in your schools, then you are creating some leading indicators, some lagging indicators, if you will, to meet or to go into each one of those folders. And so I just want to make sure I'm clear that, you know, you've got to get organized. We divided our guiding coalition team up and are having them collect data that goes along with each indicator in level 1. So basically what we did was we divvied up our leading or our indicators in level 1 to a couple members of the guiding coalition, so that it doesn't feel overwhelming, so that we're just, you know, getting a little bit of information compiled as we start to work through this process through Moodle. Okay. All right, so here's kind of the timeline, kind of where we started and where we're at. We began with learning by doing book study. And I put this on there because I just want you to know that we just opened the book and started working through the Learning by Doing book. We had not received the grant yet. We were a full year before that process, but I knew it was the right work. I'd really, you know, done my research through those Learning by Doing books and many other books that I'm sure that Stephanie and Dan know that you're going to, there's a lot of literature that comes with being in the PLC process, that it's overwhelming. And so you've got to kind of prioritize what it is that you're going to be working on. And so we started with the Learning by Doing book study with the Guiding Coalition. And then we then turned it over and did a Guiding Coalition, or did a book study with the entire staff, so that our Guiding Coalition members could provide that feedback loop to those questions that staff members would have in those meetings in a smaller group. Then we applied for the PLC Cohort 4 project. And in waiting for that, we also began our HRS book study for the first semester with the Guiding Coalition, and started working on level 1, started gaining some shared knowledge and applying some of those lagging indicators that I showed you earlier to that process, and just started compiling some evidence. And then of course we were awarded the PLC project at the beginning of 2020-2021 school year. We also then this fall, we attended a 2-day workshop, HRS workshop, and just from that workshop, we simply came back and decided to purchase Moodle and the leadership coaching sessions through HRS, which compile of 10 one-hour sessions with the Guiding Coalition. Leadership virtual sessions is what they'll do, and then they will give us some feedback on our evidence that we submit under each indicator. And so what I want to make sure and tell you is that we're just diving in. We don't know exactly what's the next step necessarily in this process. We know that we're in level 1, and we just want to focus on that. We know it's about school improvement, and we know that, yeah, we're crazy, but we just thought that we would jump in and discuss and really dive into the HRS and PLC component, because you're doing the same work. And so it just felt right to do that and be able to compile that evidence as we went along while it's fresh on our mind. Our motto as a Guiding Coalition, if we really want to change our school, it starts with us. And if we truly live by that, we feel like we can move mountains and really start to do what's best for kids within our walls. That's kind of it for me. I'm going to now pass it on to Miss Missy Wally.
Thank y'all so very much. Really, Stephanie, I love the doctor analogy, and we've talked about this, when you know better, you do better, and it's a malpractice if we don't. And I think Dan even mentioned looking in the mirror and looking at yourself and going, okay, it starts with me. And it's what we've got to do is we've got to look in that mirror and say, okay, it starts with us. So this is just kind of a little piece of it all together. Just a timeline always works well. It's SMART, which is your SMART goals, your specific, measurable, attainable, results-based, and time-bound goals. So just one, understanding where you are and know where you want to go. Make sure that you're all on the same page. Develop and utilize a guiding coalition, a leadership team. Empower others to do the work with you. You are part of the team. You don't have to be leading it all, because we all know that we all have strengths and weaknesses. And there's someone on our team who has a strength that may be our weakness. So utilize your team members. Provide the time and structures to work on the right work. That's hard. That's hard. Look at those schedules. There's several books out there. Solution Tree has some great resources on their website, free resources. So if you'll look under free resources at the top, you will find some sample schedules. Also, all things PLC, you can find some sample schedules there, but provide the time and structures for the teachers to work on that. But then 3, you've got the clarity and understanding of what you want your students to know, but also what do you want your staff to know? What do you want your parents to know? Perception is reality. And sometimes when we take those surveys, you realize what the perception of your community is. And in order to make that reality what you think, and I think Dan said it right with when he was talking about the survey says and what he says, what he thought was going on, and then what the reality is, what everybody perceived was going on. Well, you can, I guess, knock that out with having the evidence of saying this is what's really going, but sharing that evidence with everyone else. But just clarity and understanding what you want your students to know, your staff to know, your parents to know. How do you know that they know it? And how do you respond when they do or do not know it? And that's, of course, in this situation, students, but also staff. How do you respond when this is their perception? How do you help them understand this is where we're going, or their perception is that? So, and then plan, do, check, and repeat. Professional learning communities is an ongoing process, and that's what we're doing. We're plan, do, check, and then we repeat, and we have to be flexible and change that. If you'll go to the next one. This is the right work. Just think of it as a filing cabinet, and I'm going to go back again to Stephanie's thing on the doctor, because all of a sudden, I file everything away and I don't go to the doctor for a while. And then you go back and you go, oh my word, I've gained 20 pounds. Where did it creep up on me at? Because if you're not constantly checking that, it creeps up on you and you realize. So you have to make it an ongoing process, and you have to constantly look at the evidence and those lagging indicators. Jason said that he was doing this together, the PLC and the HRS, and he had a clear understanding before he got into this process how it works together. Not everybody's ready for that. If you said I'm doing PLC and HRS, some staff would go, absolutely not, we're not ready for that. So you have to know your staff and where they are at that point. So that's not a suggestion for everybody, but it is. If you're going through that process, just know it does work together. Because if you look at level 1, which is the safe and supportive and the collaborative environment, 1.4 is collaboration. And he talked about getting your leadership team in. And then I think it was Jason, who was talking about 1.3, the formal roles. Well, that's your communicating effectively. That's part of level 1. And then Dan did talk about, and I'm going to share this just because he talked about the book a lot, or they all did, but the learning by doing. And yes, I could share screen, but I'm going to do this the old fashioned way and just hold it up in front of the camera. But the continuums that they're talking about, this is the indicator. And this is that pre-initiating all the way to sustaining. And look at the difference in the columns. And that's where you know you're going to go. So this is free on that Solution Tree website. So when Jason said he started this before he ever got in the project, you can, and the resources are available. So just use that. Again, that communication goes right in with level 1. Level 2, effective teaching in every classroom. That's looking at the individual teacher styles. And what's happening with the teachers in that level 2. Again, that's happening every day in your classroom. You just have to look for the evidence. Level 3 is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Level 4 is the standards reference reporting, and level 5, competency-based education. So this is your HRS. So think of your HRS as your filing cabinet, and that's how you organize the work that you're already doing with professional learning communities. So, again, this is from the book that Jason referenced with the and my stapler was in it. The Professional Learning Communities and High Reliability Schools. So there's a lot of good resources with that, but just looking at yourself as a school leader and the effectiveness. So where are you? If you're looking at that continuum, or you're looking at this table, where do you see yourself? And how will you move yourself and your school? Are you at not using, there's no programs and practices in place to address the leading indicators? Are you at the beginning where you have your plans but no implementation? Are you all the way down where you're sustaining regular and continually collecting that quick data to monitor your ongoing effectiveness and makes necessary changes when data indicates the needs? So those cookies add up. So you have to constantly be looking at them and constantly collecting that evidence. They say that my pal fitness thing works. I'm sure it does, because it's a constant collecting of evidence. I'm not quite there yet. So if I was looking at the my pal fitness to do my collecting of evidence, I'm probably, let's see, I'd have plans but no implementation maybe. Anyway, so here's the table, and you can pull that from that book. If you'll go to the next one, Evan. So this is what the state's offering just to support. So knowing where you are with the high reliability. I'm going to say this first too, and I should have put this on here, and I'm sorry I didn't, but if you'll go to the Professional Learning Communities page, and there's a PLC event calendar, and on that event calendar, you will see lots of dates out there that will support the work, the professional learning communities. And the Office of Education Renewal Zone, they've got several professional developments going on around the state that are all virtual, and they're all free. So if you're looking for work to support that professional learning community, it's right there. And then if you're looking for work to support the high reliability schools, here's some things that we just finished up with our first, where the state provided the level 1, 2, or 3 surveys. So that finished up last Friday. The results of that will be delivered to your digital locker on November the 20th. If you have any questions about that, there is a really, really smart guy behind this, and his name is Jeff Killingsworth, and I can get you in touch with him if you want to talk to him about how to get that out of your locker room, your digital locker. But if you miss that first opportunity to administer the level 1, level 2, or level 3 survey, that opportunity was coming again in January 28th. So January 28th through February the 12th, your district may administer the level 1, 2, or 3, which is different from last year. We were doing them separate last year, but this time you can do any of those. You would not want to do them all at the same time. You would want to do one of them, but you may do any of those from January the 28th to February the 12th, and then you'll get those results on March 12th. Let me look back at January too. We have a virtual workshop on the January the 28th, where you bring your own data. So you bring your own level results, and Dr. Shelley Geese from Marzano Resources, she'll help you go through that, and you look at where your indicators are. And I think Jason's shared some of his, where his deviations, his means and mode and all of that. She'll help you understand all of that, and she'll help you look at the indicator that you need to address, and then help you start gathering that evidence for that. The results of that spring administration will be delivered to your digital locker on March 12th. And again, we'll have another BYOD, Bring Your Own Data, with Dr. Shelley Geese on April the 8th. If you'll go to the next one. Leadership is about empowering others to achieve things they did not think possible. You know, there's so many times that we look outside of our school building to find resources. And what we didn't realize is a lot of those resources lie right there inside of our school building. And when we all work together in a collective group, we can find some situations, or we can find the answers to several of our situations with the professionals who are in our building. So empower others. I cannot stress that enough, that you've got some really great teachers working in your building. Use them, and they're ready. So one of the PLC things that we always do is we want to make sure that we include, and Dan talked about PLC is the plate, and I'm going to talk about that just a second before I do this, but it's the foundation. It is the culture. It is everything that you do. So you may have different programs in your school. PLC is not a program. It's the ongoing process of how you pretty much attack everything. And one of the things within the PLC is you have to make sure that you celebrate. And so I want to take just a second just to celebrate some of the things since March. These are the PLC model schools or district that we've had identified in Arkansas since March. Ballman Elementary and Spradlin Elementary, both of Fort Smith School District, Eastside Elementary, Morrilton Intermediate, Monticello Middle School, Northside High School, Quitman School District, and East Point Elementary. And I want to go back to just to say on Northside High School, they were not part of the PLC project. So just to reiterate, you don't have to be part of the PLC project, which is the whole reason why we're doing these webinars, is just to say, hey, if you want help in implementing PLCs on your district, reach out to one of us. I mean, now you're about to have Stephanie and Jason and Dan's emails. Reach out to them. And then on the Statewide Guiding Coalition, I've got all of their emails. I've got schools you can go visit. You can go to the PLC website on the ADE website, and there's a Google survey where you can schedule a visit with one of these schools of any of the cohorts, cohort 1, 2, 3, or 4. Well, I don't know that 4 is ready yet, but because right now they've got a lot going on. But just know that we're here to support, and that's the end goal too. HRS level 1 certified. So we've talked a little bit about HRS and how it works together. So far we have Cloverdale Middle School, who's level 1 certified, and they're working on their level 2 certification as we speak. Warren School District is our first school district who is level 1 certified. And to be level 1 certified as a school district, each campus has to be level 1 certified. And then there's Highland High School. And I think we have several others who are working on their level 1 certification, including Lake Hamilton Junior High. And here is the contact information for each one of us, our email and our phone number. And if they don't, I told them if they don't put their phone number down, I'd give you their cell phone number and you'd have to get in touch with them. But please know that we're all willing to help. So just reach out to any of us and we will provide whatever guidance we can, or we'll see if we can't find it. And I do not see any, so y'all did such a phenomenal job that there are not any questions in the question box. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the box and we'll stay on just a minute. But thank you so much for joining us. And if you don't have any questions, we are gonna wrap it up and almost right on time.
Something I want to add about the HRS level 1 is you don't have to work on one indicator before the other one. As long as you're in level 1, you can work on 1.4, which is the PLC process, and still gather some other artifacts for that process. It doesn't have to be. Now, you do have to sequentially work on level 1 before you can move to level 2. So just thought I'd share that.
Are you doing that right now, Jason?
Yes, doing level 1.
Are you working on all three at the same time?
Well, we're compiling evidence for all 3.
Okay.
But we're only able to work in, they only want you working in one level at a time, and they start you with level 1. And once you become certified in that level, from my understanding is that then they'll move you up to, you'll start working on level 2, like Cloverdale did this past year. I put my number in there too later when it updates.
I will upload it to the website too. Someone just asked for a copy of it. Jason, can you share the cost of the high reliability, the level 1 certification?
Yes, so the actual Moodle component to that, which is just a platform, you've probably seen it in some college courses or whatnot. I think we used to have to do it in our admin, beginning admin to get that process completed, but you'll use that Moodle platform. It's about $2,000. And then the actual leadership virtual coaching sessions, which is 10, they're 1 hour in length, and that runs $49.95, so $5,000. So all in all, close to $7,000. And I think the person that we got this year was Mike Rule, which was wonderful because we saw him in action.
Right.
And, he was phenomenal. And I'll throw this out there too. Because we're going through HRS, we decided to send our school improvement plan off to Solution Tree to do the highly effective schools, because we're working on, the HRS is your school improvement plan. So we decided to just throw that in there to get some feedback on the school improvement plan as well.
Now, are y'all doing that through the ERZs?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. I think we have 29 schools in the state who are doing that, which is awesome.
Yeah, we're excited about that because it's just a feedback component, and it's going to be nice.
Good job. The HRS coaching. So Chris, you're asking, can you get in on the HRS coaching at any time? Are you talking about what Jason's doing? As far, okay, yes, that's an anytime thing. Just whenever you're ready to opt in, you can go to the Marzano resources, or you can tell more, Jason, on how they do that.
Yeah, I mean, they can contact me. I can give them a connection. Christina Hankins through the Marzano Research Center that will set everything up for you and get you a coach. Dr. Geese is a coach as well, I know, for some schools. So she participates in there. So they try to connect you with coaches that are available. We just lucked out.
Yeah. And then the training with Dr. Geese is also free. That's in January and April. And then the surveys are free. The state pays for the surveys. All right. I don't see any more questions. So I will upload this recording and this PowerPoint to our ADU website. Thank you so much for presenting and taking the time to do this for everyone else. And anybody, if you have any questions, please reach out to any one of us. And I know that we will all be happy to answer those questions. Y'all have a great afternoon.